I am Imani, 28 years old, and I thought I had just married the man of my dreams. I inherited a $50 million company from my grandfather, but I kept it a secret, pretending to be a simple nonprofit coordinator to find someone who loved me for me. Thank God I kept that secret. Because the morning after our wedding, my new mother-in-law Brenda showed up. She smiled, handed me a stack of legal papers and said, "Now that your family sign over that little trust fund your granddaddy left you, Marcus needs it." I signed the papers just like she asked. What she didn't know was that her greed had just activated the trust trap clause my grandfather put in his will, and by trying to steal $500,000, she had just triggered a full-scale legal investigation into her entire family. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever realized that the people smiling in your face were the ones holding the knife. The morning sun was streaming into the kitchen of the beautiful new house. I smiled, breathing in the smell of fresh coffee. This was the first day of my new life. My husband Marcus was still asleep upstairs. I had never been happier. I was so lost in the moment that I jumped when the back door slid open. My new mother-in-law Brenda stood there, not in the dress from the wedding, but in a sharp business suit. Behind her was Marcus's sister Chloe. I didn't even know Chloe had a key. She was a corporate lawyer and she looked like she had just walked out of a courtroom. Her heels clicked loudly on the marble floor. "Imani, Chloe, you're both here so early," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Marcus is still asleep." Brenda walked past me and sat down at the head of the kitchen island. Her face was cold. "I am not here for a social visit," she said. "Sit down. We have business to discuss." Chloe remained standing. She looked around the kitchen with a small, contemptuous smile. "You look very comfortable here. Don't get too used to it." She then dropped a thick stack of documents onto the counter in front of me. "Read it." My hands trembled slightly as I picked up the folder. "What is this?" I asked. "I don't understand." "It's a legal transfer," Brenda said, her voice impatient. "Marcus told us all about that little trust fund your grandfather left you. Very cute. But you are a part of this family now. And in this family we don't keep secrets. Your assets are Marcus's assets. He needs to manage them properly." I flipped through the pages. My eyes scanned the legal jargon. Transfer of assets. Fiduciary control. I looked up confused. "This looks like you want me to give Marcus control of my inheritance." Chloe laughed. It was not a nice sound. "We're not wanting you to do anything, sweetie. We're telling you. It's standard procedure. Now sign it. Now sign." My heart hammered against my ribs. I stared at the cover page. It just said Asset Management Agreement. I flipped to the second page, then the third. The language was dense legal jargon I couldn't understand. "What is this?" I asked again, my voice barely a whisper. "I really don't understand." Brenda sighed, a sound of pure impatience, as if explaining something simple to a child. "It is a legal document, Imani," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Marcus told us all about that little trust fund your grandfather left you. It's very cute, a nice starting point, but you are married now. You are a part of this family, and in this family we consolidate our assets. Your property belongs to Marcus now for proper management." I scanned the page again, and my blood ran cold. My eyes caught a specific phrase. Transfer of fiduciary control of the Elias Trust. This is a transfer document. I said the words catching in my throat. "You want me to give Marcus control of my entire trust fund?" Chloe scoffed, tapping her long fingernail against the marble countertop. "Stop being so dramatic. It is just a formality. He is your husband. He needs access to your assets to plan for your future. Both of your futures. You do not want to be difficult on the first day of your marriage. Do you think of how that looks? I looked at the signature line waiting for me. This was not right. My grandfather, he set this up for me. It is complicated. Brenda leaned in, her smile gone. What is complicated about it? You get married, you join your life with his. That includes your finances. Or were you planning on hiding this from him, from us? Is that the kind of wife you are going to be, Imani deceitful? No. That is not it at all, I said, feeling cornered. It is just, I did not expect this, not today. Chloe sighed louder this time. Look. She said my name like it tasted bad. We do not have all day. We have appointments. Marcus has needs. This family has financial goals. Your little fund can help secure a down payment on a proper investment property. It is time to contribute. Just sign the papers. It is simple. Just sign it, Imani. Chloe's voice was sharp, cutting through the morning calm. She pushed the pen across the island. It is not that hard. I stared at the black pen. The gleam of its silver clip suddenly reminded me of the key to my grandfather's old study. The memory hit me with the force of a physical blow. I was 21 again, sitting in his large leather chair, the smell of old books and his cigar smoke in the air. Elias, my grandfather, sat across from me. He pushed a thick, leather-bound folder across his mahogany desk. This is it, Imani. $50 million. He said it so calmly. And a target on your back for the rest of your life. I had stammered. Grandpa, I cannot. He held up a hand, his eyes kind but serious. You can and you will. But you must be smart. They will come for it. Men, friends, even family. They will smile in your face, tell you they love you, and the whole time they will be trying to get their hands on this. They will only love your money, Imani, not you. I remember my fear. How do I know who to trust? You will not, he said. Not at first. So I built you a fortress. This trust is a fortress, and every fortress needs a trapdoor. He smiled, then a slow, clever smile. Let us call it the trust trap clause. If anyone ever tries to force you or trick you or marries you just to get this, their very act of greed will be their undoing. This document will protect you when I cannot. My eyes snapped back to the present. The kitchen felt colder. Brenda was tapping her foot impatiently. Are you deaf, child? Sign the paper. My hand was perfectly steady now. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I looked down at the document Chloe had so proudly drafted. My eyes scanned the text. All assets, funds, and properties held within the Elias Trust. Estimated value $500,000. $500,000. I almost laughed. They had done all this entire elaborate, cruel charade, for $500,000. Marcus. He must have snooped at some point. He must have found some old statement, some decoy account my grandfather had set up and reported back to his greedy family. They built this entire wedding, this entire marriage, on a fraction of the truth. They had not even gotten the name right. The Elias Trust was just the small holding account. Genesis Legacy, the $50 million parent company, was not mentioned anywhere on this fraudulent document. They had no idea what they were really dealing with. They thought they were robbing a corner store when they were trying to knock over a Federal Reserve. And they had just walked right into the trap my grandfather had set for them. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made my head snap up. Marcus. He was finally awake. He walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, his expensive silk bathrobe hanging loosely. He looked stressed, his smile tight as he saw his mother and sister. Marcus. Thank God, I said, my voice flooding with relief. I stood up, moving toward him. Marcus, tell them this is crazy. I held onto his arm, looking for the man I had married just yesterday. the man who had cried during his vows. Marcus, your mother and sister are here with legal papers. They want me to sign over my grandfather's trust fund. It is too much. It is too sudden. He stopped and looked at the documents on the table. Then he looked at his mother. Then finally his eyes met mine, but only for a second. They were empty. He pulled his arm away gently and walked to the coffee machine, his back to me. Baby, just sign the papers, he said, his voice muffled as he poured a cup. My breath hitched. What? He turned around, leaning against the counter. He still would not look me in the eye. He just stared into his mug. It is just paperwork. Mom is right. We are a family now. What is mine is yours, and what is yours is mine. That is what marriage is. Right. Do not make things complicated on our first day. His words felt like stones dropping into my stomach. He was in on it. He had been in on it all along. The wedding vows, the loving looks, the promises. It was all a performance. Chloe smirked and crossed her arms, looking like a predator who had just cornered its prey. See, even your husband agrees. Brenda's smile returned cold and victorious. See, Imani, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Marcus understands family. He understands legacy. This is how we protect what is ours. And now you are ours. She pushed the pen toward me again. So sign it. We have a lunch reservation. We do not have all day. Just as I was about to speak, the doorbell rang. Chloe did not even look surprised. She simply glanced toward the door and said, right on time. A moment later, a thin man in a slightly rumpled suit walked in. He carried a heavy leather briefcase. He nodded professionally at Chloe, completely ignoring me. This is Mr. Price, our notary, Chloe said, her voice full of false efficiency. We called him ahead to make things convenient, to make sure everything is perfectly legal and above board. The man, Mr. Price, opened his briefcase on the kitchen counter. He pulled out an official-looking stamp and an ink pad. He did not say a word. He just looked at me expectantly. This was it, the full-court press. My husband, his mother, his sister, and now a stranger all cornering me in my own kitchen less than 24 hours after my wedding. I looked at Marcus one last time. He gave me a small, tight nod, a nod that said, just do it, get this over with. I felt the last bit of warmth drain from the room. My grandfather's voice echoed in my head. Let them think they've won. The trap is only a trap if they step into it willingly. I knew this man, Mr. Price, was not on my grandfather's approved list. I knew the document in front of me was worthless. I knew my signature was just bait. I took a deep breath, letting my shoulders slump. I made myself look defeated, like the poor, simple girl they all believed I was. All right, I said, my voice just loud enough to hear. If this is what it takes to be part of the family, if this will make Marcus and you happy, I will sign it. Brenda's face lit up, a wide shark-like smile. Chloe just smirked, already looking victorious. I picked up the pen Chloe had left on the table. My hand was steady, but I forced a little tremble into it as I reached for the document. I clicked the pen. I signed my name, Imani Elias Preston, on the line. Brenda let out a small sigh of triumph. Mr. Price stepped forward immediately. He pressed his stamp onto the ink pad and then slammed it down onto the paper with a heavy final sound. He closed the document and handed it straight to Chloe. Chloe took it, her fingers closing around the folder like she had just been handed $1 million, which she thought she had. Chloe tucked the folder into her briefcase with a snap that echoed in the quiet kitchen. Good, she said, her smile all business. Now that is settled, there is just one more small piece of housekeeping. I watched my stomach clenching as she pulled a second, much thinner document from her briefcase. Just one page. She slid it across the island to me along with the pen. Brenda sighed as if she were the one being inconvenienced. Honestly, the things we have to do for legal protection these days. I looked at the paper. The title at the top was clear. Post-nuptial agreement. My eyes scanned the first paragraph. I, Imani Preston, do hereby waive any and all claims to current and future assets, properties, and holdings of Marcus in the event of separation or divorce. I looked up at Chloe. My voice was flat. This says I get nothing if we divorce. Chloe shrugged, examining her fingernails. It is a post-nup, sweetie. It is just to keep things clean. It protects Marcus from any misunderstandings down the line. Brenda chimed in, her voice full of fake sympathy. It is just to protect the family assets, Kondo, the ones Marcus has worked so hard for. You understand. A woman coming in, well, we just have to be careful. I turned to my husband, the man who had less than 24 hours ago sworn to love and cherish me. Marcus. He would not meet my gaze. He just shrugged, looking at the floor. He picked up his coffee mug. Baby, it is just a formality. He mumbled. You know how Mom gets about these things. It will make her happy. Just sign it. It does not mean anything. It is just for her peace of mind. He still would not look at me. It does not mean anything, he said. He wanted me to sign a paper giving up all rights to his life, a life I had just legally joined, and he said it did not mean anything. The final piece of my broken heart turned to ice. My grandfather's voice was back in my head. They will show you who they are, Imani. Believe them when they do. I picked up the pen. You are right, I said, my voice empty. Just a formality. I signed my name again, watching the ink dry. This signature, just like the last one, was meaningless. But they did not know that. They thought they had just locked me out of their world while simultaneously stealing mine. I slid the second document back across the island. Chloe picked it up, her eyes scanning my signature, and a look of complete triumph settled on her face. She gave a small, sharp nod to Brenda. Wonderful, Brenda said, standing up and smoothing her suit jacket. Now that the unpleasant business is out of the way, we can all relax. Marcus let out a breath he seemed to have been holding. He walked over and wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, kissing my neck. I fought the urge to recoil. Thank you for understanding, baby, he murmured. I told you it was just a formality. He turned me around to face him, his smile finally looking relaxed. And actually, now that we are on the same page financially, there is something I wanted to talk to you about. Oh, I said, my voice hollow. What is it? He glanced at Brenda and Chloe, who were watching this exchange with keen interest. Well, it is this opportunity, he said, his voice dropping to an excited, conspiratorial tone. It is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, Imani. A tech startup that is about to go public. My buddy gave me an inside tip. But the buy-in is $100,000 and the deadline is Friday. He squeezed my hands. I was thinking, now that we are merging our assets, you could pull that from your trust. You know, for us, our first big investment together. I stared at him. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. Less than 5 minutes after tricking me into signing away my rights, he was already trying to liquidate my assets. $100,000, I asked, letting my voice sound hesitant and small. That is a lot of money, Marcus. Exactly, he beamed, which is why we have to act fast. Think of it, baby. We could double it in a month. We could use that money to finally build our future. I looked at his eager, handsome face, the face I had fallen in love with, and I felt nothing, just a cold, empty void. So let me get this straight, I said. You want me to call my bank right now and ask for $100,000? The same bank you just had me sign over control of to you. His smile widened. He actually laughed as if I had just made a clever joke. Yes, exactly, he said, tapping my nose. See? We are already a team. You are thinking just like a partner. Now you get it. Brenda and Chloe were practically glowing. They gathered their briefcases, their victory complete. Brenda patted me on the shoulder, a gesture that was meant to be motherly but felt like a pat on the head for a dog. Wonderful, she said. Now this is a proper family. We will see you at dinner on Sunday. Chloe just smiled that thin, cold smile and walked out the door behind her mother. Marcus kissed my forehead. His lips were warm, but the gesture felt like ice. Thank you, baby, he whispered. Thank you for understanding. You see? That was not so hard. Now why don't you call your bank and start that transfer? I will go hop in the shower. He smiled at me, a wide, genuine-looking smile, before turning and heading up the stairs. I heard the heavy oak door click shut downstairs. I listened to Marcus's footsteps fade down the hall. I heard the shower turn on, and then I was alone. I stood perfectly still in the middle of the kitchen. The morning sun glinted off the pen they had left on the counter. The smell of coffee was still in the air. Slowly the look of the confused, frightened victim drained from my face. My shoulders straightened. The hesitation in my eyes was replaced by a cold, hard focus. The woman who had been trembling just moments ago was gone. In her place stood the president of Genesis Legacy. I walked over to the soundproof glass doors overlooking the garden and pulled out my personal phone. Not the simple one Marcus knew about, but my encrypted work device. I hit number 1 on my speed dial. It answered on the first ring. David. It is me, Amani. His voice was all business. Tell me. They did it. I said, my voice low and steady. They did it all. I could almost hear him smile. Everything. Everything. The fraudulent transfer document for the Elias Trust. The illegal notary, a Mr. Price. The post-nuptial agreement waiving all rights to Marcus's assets. And to top it off, a casual request for $100,000 for a hot investment tip. David let out a low whistle. He was more thorough than we even predicted. The greed is astonishing. I looked out at the garden. So are we? Active, David's voice was crisp. As of your signature on that fraudulent document, yes. But with the added post-and-up and the immediate solicitation for funds, this is a clean activation. The Trust Trap Clause 12B is officially in effect. The board has been notified. The investigators are moving. The full financial audit on Marcus, Brenda, and Chloe begins right now. Chloe and Brenda walked into the downtown branch of Boston Capital Bank with the air of women who had just won the lottery. They had waited 2 agonizing hours for Marcus to text them that Amani had made the call to her bank. When no text came, Chloe's impatience won out. She grabbed the folder containing the signed documents. It doesn't matter, she told Brenda. The paperwork is legal. Let's just go. They skipped the line and went straight to the private client desk, where a manager named Mr. Harrison looked up politely. How can I help you ladies today? Chloe placed the folder on his desk with a thud. I am here to execute an asset transfer. My client Marcus has just been granted fiduciary control of the Elias Trust by his wife Imani Preston. The documents are all here signed and notarized this morning. Brenda smiled, adjusting the collar of her jacket. We are just here to finalize the transfer and get access to the funds. Mr. Harrison took the folder. He opened it, read the cover page, and turned to his computer. The quiet tapping of his keyboard was the only sound for a long, tense minute. Brenda started to tap her foot. Is there a problem? She asked, her patience already wearing thin. Mr. Harrison continued typing, clicking his mouse several times. He leaned in, reading his screen intently. Finally, he swiveled his chair back to face them. His expression was polite but firm. I am afraid I cannot process this transfer. Chloe's smile vanished. What do you mean you cannot process it? It is a legal notarized document. I am an attorney. I know my rights. I understand that, ma'am, Mr. Harrison said calmly. However, the Elias Trust has extremely specific protocols. This document has been notarized by a Mr. Jerry Price. Chloe snapped. Yes, a certified notary for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. His credentials are in the packet. Mr. Harrison shook his head slowly. That may be. But he is not on the authorized signatory list for this trust. The Elias Trust bylaws specify that any changes to fiduciary control can only be authenticated by one of 3 approved notaries in the entire country. Mr. Jerry Price is not one of them. What? Chloe stood up, her voice rising. That is insane. That is bureaucratic nonsense. Are you telling me this document is void because we used the wrong stamp pusher? I am telling you, ma'am, that this request is denied. The Elias Trust security protocols are absolute. We cannot and will not process this transfer. Brenda looked confused and furious. Just call Marcus. Call that girl. Get them down here. That will not matter, Mr. Harrison said, closing the folder and sliding it back across the desk. Unless one of the 3 authorized agents is present to witness and sign, this trust is locked. I am sorry. There is nothing more I can do. Brenda and Chloe drove away from the bank in a silent fury. Chloe gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles were white. Brenda was breathing heavily through her nose. How is this possible? Brenda hissed. How can that little nobody have a trust fund with that kind of security? She must have lied about the notary. Chloe said, her mind racing. She must have known. She played us. But why? They drove in silence for 20 minutes back to the lavish house where they had left Imani, but when they pulled up, Marcus's car was gone. They used Brenda's key to get in, only to find the house empty. She is gone, Brenda yelled, stalking through the perfect silent kitchen. Chloe pulled out her phone. Marcus isn't answering. Where is she? Where did she go? Brenda snarled. I bet she went back to that little charity she works for. I had Richard pull the address. It took them another 30 minutes to navigate to the other side of the city to a much older neighborhood with brick walk-ups and storefront churches. They found the address a modest apartment building above a laundromat. They stormed up the stairs and banged on apartment 3B. I opened the door wearing simple sweats and a t-shirt, my hair tied up in a scarf. I was holding a textbook. Brenda and Chloe stared at me, then at the tiny book-filled apartment behind me. Brenda pushed past me into the room. What? What is this slum? She demanded, looking at my second-hand furniture with disgust. Where is the house? The house Marcus showed us. I closed the door slowly. I do not know what you are talking about. This is my home. It always has been. The house Marcus showed me was just a rental. He said he borrowed it from a friend to impress me. Chloe's eyes narrowed to slits. She stepped forward, ignoring the apartment, her focus entirely on me. Enough games. Stop playing dumb. Why was the notary rejected? I shrank back, putting on my most confused expression. Notary, I don't know what you mean. I signed the papers you gave me. The bank? Chloe yelled, losing her composure. The bank said your grandfather had a special list. Why didn't you tell us? I don't know, I stammered, letting my eyes fill with tears. I just work at the nonprofit. I do not know anything about complex legal lists. My grandfather was very old-fashioned and careful. Maybe he was just protecting me. I signed the papers. I did what you asked. I had just finished making a cup of tea when my phone rang, the screen flashing with Marcus's name. I let it ring twice before answering, taking a breath to steady my voice into one of mild confusion. Marcus, is everything okay? His voice exploded through the speaker, fast and harsh. All the charm from the wedding was gone. Imani, where is the money? I need that $100,000. The deadline for the investment is Friday. What are you doing? Why are you making this so difficult? My hand tightened on my teacup. Marcus, I am trying. I told you. I went to the bank like you asked, but they said the notary was wrong. They said there is a list. My grandfather's rules are just so complicated. I do not care about your grandfather's stupid rules, he shouted, and I heard muffled, tense voices in the background. I do not have time for this, Imani. Do you understand me? I need that money. As he was yelling, the scene shifted. We were no longer just hearing his voice. We saw him. He was not in an office or the beautiful house. He was in a dark, smoky back room. Men were playing cards at a table nearby, and standing directly behind Marcus, so close his shadow fell over him, was a large, imposing man in a leather jacket. A bookie. The man's arms were crossed, and he was listening to every word Marcus said. Marcus, I do not know what to do, I said, playing my part. The bank was very firm. Then sell something. Marcus yelled, his eyes wide with panic as he glanced at the man behind him. Sell that jewelry your grandfather left you. Sell whatever you have to. I do not care how you get it. Just get me the money by Friday. He did not even say goodbye. He just slammed the phone down. I heard the click and the immediate silence. In the smoky back room, the bookie put a heavy warning hand on Marcus's shoulder. Marcus flinched. The man leaned in close, his voice a low, gravelly threat. Friday, Marcus, or your new wife becomes your new widow. You understand me? I put my phone down on my small kitchen table. I took a calm sip of my tea. The mask had completely slipped. This was not about an investment. This was about a debt. And he was more desperate than I could have ever imagined. Chloe was furious. She sat in her sleek downtown law office staring at the useless document Imani had signed. The bank's rejection echoed in her ears. Not on the authorized list. It was humiliating. She had just gotten off the phone with Brenda, who was hysterical after finding Imani in that disgusting little apartment. She was playing us, Chloe, Brenda had shrieked. Playing us for fools. Chloe's jaw tightened. All right, she said to herself, pulling up a new legal template on her computer. If the little charity worker wants to be stubborn, we'll play a different game. She wasn't just a corporate lawyer. She knew how to use the courts as a weapon. 2 days later, there was a sharp knock on Imani's apartment door. She opened it to find a stern-looking man in a suit. Imani Preston, he asked. Yes. You've been served. He handed her a thick envelope and walked away without another word. Imani closed the door, her hands steady. She sat down on her small sofa and opened the envelope. It was exactly what David had predicted. A lawsuit, filed by her husband Marcus and represented by his sister Chloe. She read the accusations, each one more absurd than the last. The lawsuit demanded that the court enforce the transfer of the Elias Trust, valued at $500,000. It accused Imani of failure to cooperate and fraudulent concealment of marital assets. It painted her as the deceitful one, a new wife intentionally hiding money from her loving, trusting husband. They were officially suing her to honor a document that they had fraudulently created. As she was reading the last page, her phone rang. It was Brenda. Imani answered, putting the call on speaker. I trust you received our little delivery. Brenda's voice purred, dripping with triumph. I just got it. Imani replied, her voice carefully neutral. Brenda laughed, a short, sharp sound. I told you, Imani. I told you my family always wins. You should have just been a good little wife and signed when you had the chance. Now we're going to take it all anyway, and we'll make sure everyone in Boston knows what a deceitful, ungrateful woman you really are. See you in court, sweetheart. Brenda hung up. Imani looked at the lawsuit in her lap. This was the final piece of evidence she needed. They hadn't just been greedy, they were now actively malicious. She picked up her own phone. "David," she said. "She did it. She filed the lawsuit." Chloe was sitting in her office feeling smug. The lawsuit was filed. That little charity worker was probably terrified, crying into her cheap pillows. She had given it 2 days, and now she expected a tearful call from Imani begging to settle. When her private line rang, she smirked, assuming it was the beginning of Imani's surrender. She picked it up, her voice smooth and professional. "Chloe speaking?" A man's voice answered, equally professional, but with a sharp, cold edge. "Is this Chloe, legal representative for Marcus?" "Yes, it is. And you are?" "My name is David Chen. I am general counsel for Genesis Legacy. We are calling regarding the lawsuit you filed this week against our client, Ms. Imani Preston." Chloe's brow furrowed. She leaned forward, muting the phone for a split second. Genesis Legacy. Who the hell was that? She unmuted it. "I am sorry, I think you have the wrong file. My lawsuit is a domestic relations matter concerning the Elias Trust. It has nothing to do with a Genesis Legacy." There was a slight pause on the other end, followed by the sound of papers shuffling. "No, ma'am." David's voice was patient, almost like he was speaking to a slow student. "I have your filing right here. You are suing Ms. Imani Preston, attempting to compel her to transfer assets from the Elias Trust to your client Marcus. Is that correct?" "Yes," Chloe said, her irritation growing. "That is exactly what I said. So if you're not her lawyer for that trust, why are you calling me? And what is Genesis Legacy?" "That," David said, his voice becoming almost amused, "is the central point of my call. You see, the Elias Trust is not a standalone entity. It is merely the small private administrative account for its parent company, Genesis Legacy." Chloe's pen stopped moving over her notepad. "Parent company. That is correct. The parent company, Genesis Legacy, which Ms. Imani Preston is the sole owner and president of. The company, I might add, that is currently valued at $50 million. The pen dropped from Chloe's hand and clattered onto the desk. 50 million? Yes. David continued, his voice crisp and relentless. Not the $500,000 you listed in your erroneous filing. You have filed a lawsuit based on completely false information, attempting to seize assets from a managing account, all while being unaware of the $50 million corporation you were actually attacking. You have sued the wrong entity with the wrong valuation using fraudulent documents. From a legal perspective, it is quite a mess you've made, counselor." Chloe's hand was shaking so badly, she could barely hang up the phone. A cold dread, heavier than any legal case she had ever faced, settled in her stomach. Genesis Legacy. $50 million. No. It was a bluff. A scare tactic. That little charity worker, that nobody could not be worth that much. It was impossible. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, typing Genesis Legacy into the search bar. The results flooded her screen. Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, TechCrunch, Genesis Legacy, the biotech giant. No one saw coming. Genesis Legacy's mystery CEO steps into the light. Inside Imani. Preston's $50 million inheritance. Chloe clicked the first link. Her blood turned to ice. The picture was not of the woman in sweats she had threatened in that tiny apartment. It was Imani. But it was an Imani she had never seen. Poised, powerful, wearing a sharp designer suit, speaking at a massive tech conference. The caption read, "Imani Preston, President and CEO of Genesis Legacy, discusses ethical innovation." She clicked another link. A financial report. Her eyes scanned the valuation numbers. 50, 52, 55 million? It was true. It was all true. The woman they had just tried to scam, the woman Marcus had married, was one of the wealthiest private tech heiresses in the state. And that $500,000 they were fighting for. It was nothing. It was pocket change. It was the bait in the trap. The door to her office burst open, making her jump. Marcus and Brenda stormed in their faces, beaming with greedy anticipation. So Brenda demanded, "How did it go?" "Did you put the fear of God into her?" Marcus was already laughing, clapping his hands together. "She is probably calling her little bank right now, begging them to release the money. I told you she would cave. When do we get the 500K, sis?" Chloe stared at them. Her face was chalk white. She looked at her arrogant brother and her smug stepmother, and she felt a wave of nausea. They had no idea what they had done. They had no idea what she had done. "What is it?" Brenda's smile faded. "Why do you look like that? Did something go wrong with the lawsuit?" Chloe slowly turned her computer monitor around for them to see. The Forbes article with Imani's powerful picture and the headline was front and center. Marcus's laughter died in his throat. He squinted at the screen. "What? What is this Genesis legacy? Who is that Imani?" Brenda leaned in, her eyes widening in disbelief as she read the numbers. Chloe finally found her voice. "It was not $500,000. She whispered, her voice trembling with the magnitude of their error. It is $50 million. Chloe was still staring at the screen, her mind unable to process the numbers. 50 million. 50 million. Marcus was breathing heavily behind her. "Sis, what? What does this mean?" Brenda, who had sunk into Chloe's expensive leather client chair, looked faint. It means she's rich. Richer than us. Richer than God." Before Chloe could even begin to formulate a response, her private line rang again. The same number as before. David Chen. Her hand trembled as she picked up the receiver. "What?" she said, her voice a dry croak. "Ah, Ms. Chloe. Good you are still there." David's voice was bright, almost cheerful. "I just had one final point of order. A little bit of housekeeping, you might say." "What? What is it?" "Well, now that you are aware of the full valuation of Genesis Legacy, I am formally calling to inform you about the legal implications of the lawsuit you filed yesterday." Chloe's blood ran cold. "The lawsuit? That was based on the 500,000. It was a misunderstanding." "Oh, it's no misunderstanding, counselor," David said, the amusement gone from his voice. "By filing that suit, citing a fraudulent document and a non-authorized notary in an attempt to seize assets, you have officially violated Clause 12B of the Elias Trust Agreement." Chloe's mind went blank. She had no memory of a Clause 12B. Clause 12B. What the hell is Clause 12B? "Ah," David said. "That is my favorite part. It is the trust trap clause. You see, Mr. Elias was a very wise man. He anticipated a situation just like this. The clause states, and I am quoting directly, any attempt, legal or otherwise, to seize the beneficiary's assets through fraudulent means, coercion, or a marriage of deceit." David paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Will immediately trigger two actions. First, it nullifies any and all claims, present or future, that the perpetrators have on the beneficiary. Second, it activates a full forensic legal audit into the personal and professional finances of all named parties involved in the attempt." Chloe's legs gave out. She grabbed the desk to keep from falling. "So, congratulations, Ms. Chloe," David's voice concluded. "By filing that lawsuit to steal $500,000, you have just legally authorized a full-scale invasive audit of yourself, your client Marcus, and his mother Brenda. Our investigators will be in touch. Have a wonderful day." The following week was not just bad, it was a systematic dismantling. Marcus discovered the true meaning of the audit when he tried to buy a new watch, a small pick-me-up, after the disastrous meeting. His credit card, the one he used for everything, was declined. Try it again, he snapped at the sales clerk. The clerk ran it twice more. I am sorry, sir. Declined. Marcus threw the watch on the counter and stormed out, his face burning. He tried his debit card at an ATM. Account frozen. Then the calls started. The audit, it turned out, was thorough. The investigators from Genesis Legacy were not just looking at his assets, they were looking at his debts. The bookie he owed $80,000 to. The high-interest loan he took out on that failed crypto scheme. The credit cards he had maxed out to furnish the rental house. Every creditor, every lender, every person he owed money to suddenly got a notification that his accounts were in legal jeopardy. They all called at once, demanding payment, threatening lawsuits, breaking knees. His phone blew up with numbers he did not recognize, all asking for their money now. Brenda's humiliation came at the spa. She had just finished a 90-minute massage and facial, ready to charge the $500 bill to the joint account she shared with Marcus. The account she had been assured would soon be overflowing with Imani's little trust fund. I am so sorry, Mrs. Jackson, the receptionist said, her smile painfully tight. This card has been frozen by the bank. Do you have another form of payment? Brenda was furious. She was forced to use her own emergency credit card, the one she kept hidden. As she was signing the receipt, her own phone rang. It was American Express. Yes, Mrs. Jackson, a polite voice said. We are calling about the $20,000 payment you made last week on your outstanding balance. That payment was flagged by an external audit team. We have been informed the source of those funds is currently under legal investigation. We are reversing the payment pending review. Brenda dropped her phone. The money she had secretly funneled from Marcus to pay off her shopping debts, they had found it. But Chloe received the worst blow. It arrived via certified mail on Thursday morning. It was a thick, cream-colored envelope bearing the seal of the State Bar Association. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The letter was short and brutal. Dear Ms. Chloe, this letter is to inform you that a formal ethics investigation has been opened into your conduct. Following a complaint filed by the legal counsel of Genesis Legacy, allegations include conspiracy to commit fraud, and the use of an unlicensed or fraudulent notary, one Mr. Jerry Price, in an attempt to illegally seize assets. She dropped the letter. An ethics investigation. That was not just a fine. That was her career. That was her license. That was everything. David Chen's promise was not a threat. It was a fact. The audit was not just a look at their books. It was an execution. I was reading a report from David when the banging started. It was not a knock. It was the frantic, desperate pounding of someone who had lost all control. I walked calmly to my door and looked through the peephole. It was Marcus. He looked nothing like the polished man I had married. His hair was wild, his eyes wide with terror, and he was sweating through his expensive shirt. Imani, he yelled, pounding again, making the door shake in its frame. Imani, I know you are in there. Open the door. Please, I just watched him through the small glass lens. Please, baby, open the door. He was begging now, his voice cracking. I am sorry. I am so sorry. It was not my idea. It was my mother. It was Chloe. They pushed me into it. I did not know. I swear, I did not know about the 50 million. He slammed his palms against the door again. Imani, you have to stop this. You have to call them off. The audit. They froze everything. My accounts. My cards. Everything the creditors are calling. The bookies. Imani, they are hunting me. They are going to break my legs. They said they'd kill me. Please, you have to help me. I waited until his desperate sobs subsided for a moment. I put my mouth close to the wood of the door. My voice was calm and steady. You were right about one thing, Marcus. He went still. What? What are you talking about? Did you hear me? I said they are trying to kill me. Just help me. You told me not to make things complicated. I said, my voice clear and cold. You said we were a team. You said it was all just a formality. He was silent for a beat, processing my words. The terror in his eyes turned dark. You, he whispered. Then he roared, his voice echoing in the hallway as he slammed his fist against the door. You did this. You set me up. You lying bitch. You trapped me. I stepped back from the door as he kicked it, the wood groaning under the impact. You are going to pay for this, Imani. Do you hear me? You will not get away with this. I heard him kick the door one last time, a final guttural scream of rage, and then the sound of his expensive shoes stumbling as he ran back down the stairs. I stood in my silent apartment. I was finally safe. I stood in my living room, my phone in my hand, listening to his retreating footsteps echo down the stairwell. I was about to call David, but then the footsteps stopped. I heard them coming back up, heavier this time, angrier. He started pounding on the door again, not with his fists, but with his foot. The door shuddered. You think you are so smart, don't you? His voice was no longer pleading. It was a low, menacing growl. You think you can just hide in there after what you did, after you ruined me? I held my phone up and pressed the record button. You are going to pay for this, Imani. He snarled, his voice muffled but clear through the wood. I swear to God you will pay. You think you are safe behind that locked door? You have to come out sometime. You have to go to your car. You have to go to work. He kicked the door again hard. And when you do, I will be waiting. You will not see me coming, but I will be there. You took everything from me. I am going to take everything from you. I pressed stop on the recording and immediately dialed David. I put the phone to my ear. David, I said, my voice perfectly calm. Are you still monitoring? Yes. I heard it all. David replied, his voice grim. Clause 12B was for the audit. This is Clause 12C. I know, I said, walking to my window and peering down at the street. Clause 12C, another one of my grandfather's brilliant little protections. Any physical threat or act of intimidation against the beneficiary automatically authorizes the trust to employ all necessary legal and civil protections. He just violated it, I said, watching as two police officers, alerted by David's security team, the moment Marcus returned, quietly pulled up to the curb. Yes, he did, David said, and I have already dispatched the authorities. They should be there now. Just as he said it, I heard the heavy footsteps of the officers ascending the stairs. I heard them call out, Marcus Jackson. I heard Marcus, surprised, say, Yes, what is this? Sir, you are under arrest for making criminal threats. I listened through my door. I heard the scuffle. I heard Marcus yell, What, you cannot be serious. My wife, she's the criminal. I heard the click of handcuffs. I heard his furious, impotent screams as they dragged him down the stairs. I looked through my peephole one last time. The hallway was empty. It was finally over. The arrest of Marcus Jackson for making criminal threats, coupled with the explosive rumors about a $50 million inheritance and a mysterious trust trap, set the Boston media world on fire. News vans camped outside my tiny apartment building. Online forums exploded with theories. Was Imani Preston a victim? Or was she a brilliant, manipulative black widow who had trapped her new husband? The narrative was spiraling out of control. I watched it all from David's secure conference room, a stack of newspapers in front of me. They are painting me as a predator, I said, my voice cold. Brenda and Chloe are feeding them stories about a distraught family and a confused young wife. David nodded grimly. Silence is no longer an option, Imani. They are using your privacy as a weapon against you. You have to get ahead of this. I looked at the picture on the front page. It was an unflattering photo of me from my nonprofit ID badge, contrasted with a handsome, smiling studio portrait of Marcus. The headline read, "Local Financier Arrested Mystery Wife at Center of $50 million Dispute." "You are right," I said, standing up. "They want a story. Let's give them the real one. Schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning at the Genesis headquarters. I am done hiding." Brenda and Chloe, having scrambled to post bail for Brenda using the last of her non-frozen assets, saw the news alert on Chloe's laptop. "A press conference," Brenda spat, pacing the floor of Chloe's office. "That little snake. She is going to try and paint us as the villains." Chloe, however, slowly started to smile. The old arrogant smirk returned to her face. "No, Mother," she said, her voice full of newfound confidence. "She is not being smart. She is being stupid. She is giving us a stage. She is handing us the microphone in front of every major news outlet in the city." Brenda stopped pacing. "What do you mean?" "I mean we are going," Chloe said, grabbing her planner. "We will sit in the back row, and just when she thinks she has everyone on her side, I will stand up. I will demand to be heard. I will expose her as the manipulative gold digger she is. The grieving family fighting for their innocent son who was trapped in a fake marriage. By the time we are done, she will be the one facing an audit." Brenda's eyes lit up with a vicious fire. "Oh, Chloe," she purred, "that is brilliant. She will not know what hit her." The conference room at the Genesis Legacy headquarters was packed. Reporters from every major Boston outlet and even some national news crews crammed into the space. Camera flashes popped and a low murmur filled the air as they all waited for the mystery wife to appear. In the back row, hidden just behind a pillar, Brenda and Chloe slipped into their seats. Chloe looked smug, her briefcase on her lap, ready for her ambush. Brenda looked nervous but vicious, like a cornered animal. The side door opened. David Chen, Imani's lawyer, walked to the podium first. "Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Imani Preston." The door opened wider. The woman who walked out was not the one they had read about. She was not the distraught, confused wife. She was not the mousy nonprofit worker. This was a different person. Imani was wearing a sharp, custom-tailored suit in a brilliant, arresting white. Her hair, which she had hidden under scarves, was now styled in a sleek, powerful afro. Her makeup was flawless. She did not scurry or hesitate. She walked to the podium with a slow, deliberate confidence that radiated authority. The only sound in the room was the rapid-fire click-click-click of 100 cameras trying to capture her. In the back row, Chloe squinted. "Who is that?" she whispered to Brenda. "Is that... It can't be." Brenda's hand flew to her pearls, her eyes wide with disbelief. It was Imani, but it was not. Imani reached the podium. She did not tap the microphone or nervously shuffle her papers. She simply placed her hands on either side of it and looked out at the sea of faces. The room fell completely silent. Her voice when she spoke was not the tearful whisper they expected. It was clear, deep, and steady. "Good morning. Thank you all for coming." She paused, letting them take her in, letting the image of this woman replace the false narrative that had been created. "There has been a great deal of speculation about my life for the past few days. Most of it has been incorrect. You have read stories about a mystery wife. You have heard rumors of a distraught woman trapped in a family dispute. That person is not here today." She leaned forward slightly. "My name is Imani Preston, and I am the founder, president, and CEO of Genesis Legacy. For years, I have kept my professional life private. I did this for one reason. I wanted to find a partner who would love me for who I am, not for what I am worth. I worked at a nonprofit. I lived in a simple apartment. I wanted more than anything to build a life based on genuine connection, not financial statements. I thought I had found that. I thought I had found a man who loved me. Instead, I found a family that had been planning to defraud me before the wedding cake was even cut. Less than 24 hours after I said, "I do," my new mother-in-law Brenda and my new sister-in-law Chloe showed up at my home. They were not there to celebrate. They were there to collect. They presented me with this document. I held up a copy of the fraudulent transfer agreement. The camera zoomed in. This document, which they claimed was a formality, was an attempt to illegally transfer control of my assets to my new husband, Marcus. They believed my inheritance was a modest $500,000, and they were desperate to get their hands on it. When I hesitated, they pressured me. When I asked for my husband, he came downstairs and told me, "Just sign it, baby. Don't make things complicated." So I did. I signed the paper. What they did not know was that the entire document was a fraud, not just morally, but legally. I held up a second piece of paper. This is a certified letter from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It confirms that the notary they brought to my home, Mr. Jerry Price, is not and has never been a licensed notary public in this state. The stamp he used was a fake. The signature he provided was a forgery. The entire transfer was an act of criminal fraud orchestrated by a licensed attorney, Chloe, and my husband. They did not just ask me for money. They conspired to steal it using my marriage as their weapon. The room was utterly silent. In the back, Chloe had gone rigid, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. But their conspiracy did not end there. After they believed they had secured my entire inheritance, their very next move was to try and liquidate it. My husband Marcus informed me he had a once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity that required $100,000. He demanded I get him this money immediately. When I explained that my grandfather's bank had complex rules, he became insistent. I held a small digital recorder up to the microphone. The room filled with the sound of Marcus's voice, no longer charming but sharp and desperate. "I do not care about your grandfather's stupid rules. I do not have time for this, Imani. Do you understand me? I need that money. Sell that jewelry your grandfather left you. Sell whatever you have to. I do not care how you get it. Just get me the money by Friday." The reporter scribbled furiously. I stopped the recording and looked back up. When I did not produce the money, and after his family's attempts to seize the trust failed, he came to my private residence. He was no longer asking. He was threatening. Please be aware the following recording contains disturbing language. I pressed play again. Marcus's voice, distorted with rage, filled the room. "You think you are so smart, don't you? You think you can just hide in there after what you did? After you ruined me? You are going to pay for this, Imani. I swear to God you will pay. You think you are safe behind that locked door? You have to come out sometime. You have to go to work, and when you do, I will be waiting. You took everything from me. I am going to take everything from you." I turned off the recorder. The silence in the room was absolute. My husband's family, Chloe and Brenda, believed they had the right to take what I had built. They believed they could use my marriage to erase my identity and absorb my legacy. They believed I was weak, simple, and alone. They were wrong. Before the reporters could even react, a voice shrieked from the back of the room, "It is all lies." The cameras swiveled. Brenda was on her feet, her face purple with rage, pointing a trembling finger at me. "She is lying. She is the one who is a fraud. That house, the house they live in, that is my son's house. He worked his entire life for that house. She is trying to steal it from him. She is trying to make him homeless." A new wave of questions erupted as reporters shouted at Brenda, then at me. "Mrs. Jackson, what is she talking about? Imani is the house in your husband's name." I did not have to answer. David Chen stepped forward, holding up a hand for silence. The room quieted once more. "Ms. Jackson is mistaken," David said, his voice calm and precise. He signaled to an assistant and a new document was projected onto the large screen behind us. It was a property deed. The house in question, David continued, the beautiful home where my client was presented with these fraudulent documents, was never owned by Marcus Jackson. Brenda froze her mouth half open. In fact, David went on, it was purchased 6 months ago by Genesis Legacy. You can see the deed right here. The cameras all turned to the screen, capturing the undeniable proof. But Marcus took me there, Brenda stammered, confused. He said it was his. Yes, he did, David agreed. You see, Mr. Elias's trust contained several provisions for testing the character of any potential spouse. This was one of them. Genesis Legacy leased the home to Mr. Jackson at no cost, allowing him to present it as his own. It was a test to see if he was honest about his own financial standing or if he would use a false display of wealth to deceive his new partner. He paused, letting the implication sink in. He failed that test. The lease agreement was contingent upon his good faith in the marriage. By committing fraud, he has violated the terms. The lease was terminated this morning. Mr. Jackson currently has 24 hours to vacate the property, which belongs, as it always has, to Genesis Legacy. A collective gasp went through the room. The house, the beautiful, impressive house. It was just another part of the trap. The reporters were in a frenzy, shouting questions at once. Imani, how long was this test planned? Brenda, did you know the house was a rental? Chloe was frozen, her mind spinning. The house, the notary, the 50 million. Everything was a trap. She was trying to find a way to spin this to regain control when a reporter from the Boston Globe spotted her. Ms. Chloe, he yelled, pointing his microphone. You're an attorney. Did you advise your client, your brother, to commit this fraud? Did you draft these fraudulent documents yourself? All the cameras turned to her. Chloe opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I can answer that. A new voice, sharp and authoritative, cut through the noise. A well-dressed, imposing woman in her 60s stood up from the third row. The press turned to her, confused. My name is Elizabeth Warren. No relation, she said with a slight grim smile. I am the spokesperson for the disciplinary board of the State Bar Association. A new, shocked silence fell over the room. Chloe's blood turned to ice. We were first alerted to Miss Chloe's irregularities several days ago by the legal team at Genesis Legacy regarding her use of a known fraudulent notary, Jerry Price. I didn't know, Chloe shrieked, finding her voice. I was misled. You will have an opportunity to make your case at your hearing, Miss Chloe, Elizabeth said, her voice devoid of emotion. However, after witnessing your own public admission of filing a lawsuit to seize assets based on documents you knew to be questionable, and after hearing the audio recording of your client, Mr. Marcus Jackson, admit to a conspiracy, we have more than enough evidence. Evidence of what? Brenda whispered, her hand on Chloe's arm. Elizabeth looked directly at Chloe, her eyes like steel. Based on the evidence presented here today and our own internal investigation, the State Bar is issuing an immediate emergency suspension of your license to practice law pending a full disbarment hearing. Your actions, including conspiracy to commit fraud, filing a deceptive lawsuit, and professional misconduct, are a profound disgrace to this profession. The words hit Chloe like a physical blow. Her license, her career, her entire identity, it was gone. No, she whimpered as the cameras flashed in her face. No, you can't. She wasn't a lawyer anymore. She was just a common criminal exposed in front of the entire city. The smug, superior smirk she had worn her entire life shattered. She grabbed the back of the chair in front of her, her legs giving out, and she collapsed, a broken, whimpering sound escaping her lips as she sank to the floor. The flashes from the cameras were blinding, all focused on the floor, where Chloe was sobbing hysterically. Reporters were shouting, Chloe, What's your response? How long have you been committing fraud? Brenda, who had been frozen in shock, finally snapped back to reality. Chloe, get up! Get up! She hissed, trying to push through the reporters to get to her stepdaughter. She was panicking, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention for one final moment. David Chen's calm, amplified voice cut through the chaos. The reporters, sensing more reluctantly, turned their focus back to the podium. Brenda froze halfway to Chloe. David looked down at his notes. While the State Bar's decision concludes the matter of Ms. Chloe's professional conduct, the audit activated by Clause 12B had other findings. He looked directly at Brenda. She met his gaze confused. The audit of Marcus Jackson's finances revealed a series of highly irregular transactions, David continued. Specifically, large sums of money being funneled into offshore accounts and then used to pay significant hidden credit card and gambling debts. Debts that did not belong to Mr. Jackson. Brenda's hand went to her pearls. I don't know what you're talking about. Do you not, Mrs. Jackson? David asked, his voice sharp. Our investigators found that you used your son's accounts, which you believed were about to be filled with Ms. Preston's inheritance, to launder money and pay off over $100,000 of your own personal debts. You were hiding this from your son, and you were planning to use your new daughter-in-law's money to cover your tracks. Brenda's face went from pale to a sickly gray. That's a lie. It was a loan, Marcus agreed. Was that before or after you conspired with him to commit felony fraud against Miss Preston? David asked. This is not just a family matter, Mrs. Jackson. This is criminal, which is why we took the liberty of forwarding our findings to the Boston Police Department. On cue, 2 uniformed police officers who had been standing quietly by the main entrance began to walk forward. They moved past the reporters, past the still sobbing Chloe, and stopped directly in front of Brenda. Brenda Jackson, the first officer said, his voice polite but firm. Brenda backed away, stumbling into a chair. No, this is a misunderstanding. I am a respected member of this community. Ma'am, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and suspicion of money laundering. The entire press conference erupted. The cameras swung from Chloe on the floor to Brenda as the officer took her arm. You can't do this! Brenda shrieked, her high society composure shattering completely. Get your hands off me, Imani. Tell them this is a mistake, you ungrateful little... The officer clicked the handcuffs shut. You have the right to remain silent. Imani watched her face impassive as the woman who had tried to destroy her just one day after her wedding was led away in handcuffs, the camera flashes illuminating her path of ruin. The chaos in the press room was deafening. Reporters were shouting into their phones, cameramen were jostling for position to get a shot of Brenda being led out. Chloe was still on the floor, a crumpled heap, her sobs now silent and defeated. David Chen let the pandemonium swirl for a moment before stepping back to the podium. He held up one final single document and one last piece of business. He called out, his voice cutting through the noise. The room quieted slightly. He did not address the press. He turned and spoke directly to me, holding out the paper. Ms. Preston, this is the petition for annulment. Based on the clear and overwhelming evidence of fraud and conspiracy to deceive your marriage of less than 48 hours, is legally void. He placed the document on the podium in front of me alongside a pen. Before I could even reach for it, the main doors of the conference room burst open. Imani Marcus. He must have made bail. He looked like a wild man. His suit was wrinkled, his tie was gone, and his eyes were red and frantic. He shoved past a security guard and ran toward the stage. Imani, please do not sign that. He tried to climb onto the podium, but 2 guards grabbed his arms, holding him back. He struggled against them, his voice breaking. It was not me, Imani, I swear. It was them. It was my mother. It was Chloe. They put the words in my mouth. They told me what to do. I was just trying to... He stopped struggling, his face crumbling. I love you, he choked out. Please, Imani, I love you. Not the money. I did not even know about the money. I just wanted to... Please give me another chance. We can fix this. All the cameras in the room, all the microphones, all the eyes turned from him back to me. They were waiting to see if the powerful CEO was still just a wife, waiting to see if the love she thought she had was her final weakness. I looked at Marcus. I looked at the man I had loved, the man who had held me and lied to my face, the man who was now weeping and begging as his world collapsed. I saw the desperation. I saw the weakness. I saw the lie. Then I looked down at the paper. I picked up the pen. I uncapped it with a small, definitive click. And as my husband watched, I pressed the pen to the signature line, and with a calm, steady hand, I signed my name. I voided him. I erased him. David Chen took the paper. It is done. The press room was a madhouse. Marcus was being dragged out by security, still screaming, I love you, Imani. It was a mistake. Brenda was being processed by the police, and Chloe was still a sobbing heap on the floor. A reporter from the Boston Globe, the first one to gather his thoughts, yelled out the question that was on everyone's mind. Mr. Chen David, why? Why would a trust be structured like this? These clauses, the trust trap. It sounds vindictive. It sounds like she was setting him up from the beginning. All eyes, all cameras turned back to David. He stood calmly at the podium and waited for the noise to die down. When it did, he leaned into the microphone. That is a fair question, he said, his voice resonating with authority. I knew Elias Preston for over 30 years. He was my mentor, and he was not a vindictive man. He was a brilliant man, and he was a realist. He looked around the room, making eye contact with the reporters. He knew that the $50 million company he was leaving his granddaughter would make her a target for the rest of her life. He did not want her to live in paranoia, constantly wondering if a man loved her or her bank account. David paused, letting the truth of his next words land. So he built a test, not a trap, a test of character. The trust trap clause was not designed to punish an innocent mistake. It was designed to punish intent. It could only be triggered by active, malicious, and fraudulent behavior. Think about it. An honest man, a man who truly loved Imani, would never demand she sign over her inheritance less than 24 hours after their wedding. An honest partner would never bring a fake notary into her home. An honest family would never sue her to seize her assets. David looked at the chaotic scene by the door. That clause, Clause 12B, could only be activated by greed. It was a lock that only a thief would try to pick. Mr. Elias always said, "You do not blame the vault for the bank robber's choices." That family was not trapped. They were exposed. They did not just walk into a trap. They built it, set it, and then slammed the door on themselves. That is not vindictive. That is justice. The press conference was a bomb that vaporized their entire lives. The fallout was not slow. It was immediate and brutal. For Marcus, the audit that Clause 12B triggered was a Pandora's box. The investigators from Genesis Legacy, tasked with protecting Imani's assets, dug into all of his finances. They uncovered the gambling debts, the high-interest loans, and most damningly, a series of illegal wire transfers Marcus had made months before he even met me related to his once-in-a-lifetime crypto scheme. It was pure, unadulterated fraud. We see him in a courtroom not for threatening me, but for defrauding his other investors. The judge's voice is merciless. Guilty on all counts. The gavel falls like an executioner's axe. The next time we see Marcus, his designer suit is gone, replaced by a bright orange jumpsuit. He is sitting on a narrow cot in a small concrete cell, his head in his hands, a broken man. Chloe's fate was just as swift. The state bar's emergency suspension became a permanent disbarment. The video of her attempting to ambush the press conference, combined with the evidence of the fake notary, made it an open and shut case. But the law firm she worked for fired her immediately for ethical violations, and with her reputation in ruins, no one else would hire her. We see her sharp legal suits swapped for a stained green apron and a plastic name badge that just says, Chloe. She is working as a barista at a generic coffee chain. A customer yells at her for getting his order wrong. And Chloe, the woman who once controlled boardrooms, can only whimper, I am sorry, sir. I will remake it for you. Brenda avoided prison time. Barely. She was convicted of money laundering and conspiracy, but her age and a high-priced lawyer got her probation. But the probation came with a condition: full restitution. Every asset she had was seized. We see her in a sterile auction house, sitting in the back row, invisible, watching as her diamond earrings, her furs, her antique furniture, and finally her beloved luxury condo are sold off piece by piece to pay the debts she thought Imani's money would cover. Her socialite friends no longer answer her calls. Her name is mud in Boston society. Her final scene is her alone in a small state-subsidized apartment, her reign as the family's queen over. 6 months had passed. I walked into a brightly lit generic coffee chain downtown, the kind with mediocre coffee and bad music. Behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine, was a woman in a stained green apron. Her expensive manicure was gone, replaced by chipped polish and coffee grounds under her nails. It was Chloe. She looked up as the bell on the door chimed, and her face froze. She stared at me, her eyes filled with a familiar, bitter resentment. I walked to the counter, and she did not move, just watched me, her hand gripping the dirty rag. What are you doing here? She finally spat, her voice low and rough. Did you come here to gloat, to see how far I have fallen? I looked at her, at the woman who had tried to ruin me with such casual arrogance. I felt nothing. No anger. No pity. Just nothing. No, Chloe. I am not here to gloat. I said, my voice quiet. I came to deliver a final message. She braced herself, clearly expecting another lawsuit, another legal blow. I came to tell you that I have bought out your mother's outstanding debts. Chloe's eyes widened in confusion. What Brenda's debts? The ones she still owed after her restitution. The private ones. The ones that were about to send her to prison for non-payment. I purchased them. They are paid in full. She will not be going to jail. Chloe just stared at me, completely stunned. The rag in her hand was still. Why, she whispered. Why would you do that? After everything she did, I took a breath. Because she is Marcus's mother. And despite the lies, despite the fraud, despite everything, he was once the man I loved. My grandfather taught me everything about justice, Chloe, but he also taught me about compassion. He taught me that you do not have to destroy someone to win. A small flicker of hope appeared in Chloe's eyes. So, you forgive us? I held up my hand, stopping her. No, do not misunderstand this. This is not forgiveness. This is closure. This is me closing the book on your family forever. The debt is paid. My debt to the past is paid. I am done. I placed a $20 bill on the counter. And Chloe, do not ever contact me again. Any of you. This is the end. I turned and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving her standing there, stunned and finally silent. I did not look back. I stood in front of the simple, elegant granite headstone. Elias Preston, a wise man who built a legacy. The cemetery was quiet, a stark contrast to the noise of the city and the chaos of the last 6 months. The air was cool and crisp. It was the first time I had felt truly peaceful since the day after my wedding. I reached out and traced the letters of his name with my finger. Well, Grandpa, I did it. I said, my voice soft in the stillness. Your trap worked. It worked exactly as you said it would. I sat down on the grass, not caring if it stained my clothes. They walked right into it. All of them. They were so blinded by greed, so sure I was weak. They never even thought to look deeper. They thought I was worth $500,000. And for that, they were willing to destroy me. They did not know I was really worth $50 million. I let out a small, quiet laugh. You were always worried, weren't you? You were so afraid I would end up with someone who only wanted the money. You spent years drilling it into my head. Be careful, Imani. They will only love your money, not you. You were so determined to protect me. I looked at the headstone at the name of the man who had seen the world so clearly. I wanted you to know that I finally found that person. The person you always wanted from me. The one who loves me for who I am and not for my bank account. I paused, taking a deep, steadying breath. It is me. I found someone who does not love me for my money. It is myself. I finally see what you saw. I am not the mousy girl working at a non-profit hiding from the world. I am your granddaughter. I am the president of Genesis Legacy. I am strong and I am smart and I am capable, and I do not need anyone else to validate me or tell me my worth. They tried to break me, Grandpa. They really did. They tore my heart out. But you built me a fortress just like you said. And it held. The fortress was not just the trust or the money. It was the strength you taught me. I am going to make you proud. I am going to run Genesis with justice and with compassion, just like you said. I stood up and brushed the grass off my pants. I felt lighter. The final piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. Thank you, Grandpa, for everything. I am finally free. I stood at the head of the long glass conference table. The boardroom of Genesis Legacy overlooked the entire Boston Harbor, a view I now saw every day, a view that reminded me of what my grandfather had built. My executive team, 10 of the brightest minds in biotech, watched me intently. There was no trace of the mousy, hesitant woman from the nonprofit. This was my room. Good morning, everyone, I said, my voice clear and resonating with authority. Thank you for coming. I've reviewed the third quarter projections and they are exceptional. The new research division is outperforming all metrics. I smiled warmly at Dr. Benning, my head of R&D. Fantastic work, Sarah. She nodded, smiling back. Now to the final item on the agenda. Something new. Something personal. I clicked the remote in my hand. The large presentation screen behind me changed. It was not a spreadsheet. It was a new, elegant logo. The Elias Fund, built by legacy, driven by the future. My grandfather, Elias Preston, built this company from a single idea and a $2,000 loan he had to fight for. He was a black man in the 1970s who was told no at every turn. He was told he didn't belong in rooms like this. He was told he didn't have the education, the connections, or the capital. He proved them all wrong, but he had to do it alone against incredible resistance. I walked slowly along the table, making eye contact with each team member. Genesis Legacy is his financial legacy, but its soul, its future, will be about ensuring that the next generation of brilliant minds does not have to fight those battles alone. I turned back to the screen. Today, I am officially announcing the formation of the Elias Fund. Genesis Legacy is committing an initial $10 million to create a venture capital fund specifically and exclusively for Black female entrepreneurs in the technology and science sectors. A murmur of genuine excitement went through the room. My COO, a sharp woman named Alani, was already nodding in approval. The world is full of brilliant women, I continued, my voice ringing with passion. Women who are told no. Women who are underestimated. Women who are told their ideas are cute or small. Women who are overlooked because they don't look the part, or fit the mold, or have the right connections. This fund is not a charity. It is an investment. It is a bet on the single most undervalued, most powerful asset in the American economy, Black women. We will find them, we will fund them, and we will build the future together. This is the true legacy of Genesis Legacy. The room erupted not in polite corporate applause, but in genuine enthusiastic support. David Chen, now my general counsel, raised his coffee mug in a toast. I was not just a president. I was a leader. This was my company. This was my purpose. It was a year later. I was not in my high-rise office. I was in a small, independent coffee shop in a neighborhood I loved, tucked into a comfortable armchair by the window. I was not wearing a power suit. I was in my favorite jeans, a soft knit sweater, and my hair was wrapped in a colorful scarf. I was just Imani. I was sketching ideas for a new community garden project in my notebook, sipping a latte, and feeling content. The cafe was busy with the sounds of the espresso machine hissing and people chatting. I was so focused on my drawing that I did not notice the man standing next to my table until he stumbled. Oh my gosh. I am so sorry. I looked up. A tall, handsome man about my age was staring in horror at my notebook, where a large splash of his dark roast coffee was now bleeding across my sketch. He was wearing glasses and a tweed blazer, looking more like a flustered professor than a clumsy stranger. I am so clumsy, he said, grabbing a handful of napkins from the counter and blotting uselessly at the page. Oh, I have completely ruined it. I am so sorry. I looked at the ruined sketch, then up at his genuinely mortified face, and I found myself smiling, a real easy smile. It is okay, I said. Honestly, it was just a rough draft, and I think the coffee stain actually gives it a certain rustic charm. He looked at my smile, then at the notebook, and let out a nervous laugh. You are being way too kind. Please let me buy you a new notebook. And another coffee, a muffin, anything. I am Jamal, by the way. He held out his hand, still holding a damp napkin. I shook it, laughing. I am Imani. I watched his face closely as I said my name. I was used to the flicker of recognition, the sudden shift in people's eyes as they connected me to Genesis Legacy. But with Jamal there was nothing. No recognition. No change in his expression. He was just a kind, clumsy man who had spilled coffee on a stranger and wanted to make it right. He did not see a CEO. He did not see $50 million. He just saw me. Imani. He repeated, his smile becoming more confident. That is a beautiful name. Well, Imani, can I please replace that notebook for you? I closed the damp notebook. How about just that coffee, I said. You can sit with me while I see if this sketch is salvageable. His face lit up. I would like that. I would like that a lot. He hurried off to the counter and I watched him go. I felt something I had not felt in a very, very long time. A simple, uncomplicated spark of interest. No tests, no traps, just coffee and a conversation. I finally understood what my grandfather had wanted for me. It was this. It was just this. Jamal returned to the table a few minutes later, carefully balancing two large coffee mugs. He set one down in front of me. One latte as requested, he said, and one black coffee for me. I figured I'd sit down before I caused any more chaos. Thank you, Jamal, I said, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. You really did not have to do that. It was the least I could do, he replied, sliding into the chair opposite me. So, that sketch, was it for work or just for fun? A little of both. I admitted, surprised by how easy it was to talk to him. I do some coordination for a nonprofit, and we are planning a new community garden. I was just brainstorming. A community garden, that's incredible, he said, his eyes lighting up with genuine interest. I am actually an architect. My focus is on sustainable urban design. Green spaces and city environments are my passion. My smile widened. Really? Then you would probably agree my original sketch was all wrong. The sun exposure on that east wall. Exactly. He jumped in, leaning forward. You would need drought-resistant plants, and the drainage would be a nightmare unless you built raised beds. Like this. He grabbed a clean napkin and pulled a pen from his jacket pocket. He started to sketch, his hand moving quickly and confidently. He talked as he drew, explaining concepts of light and water flow. He was brilliant and passionate, and completely unpretentious. We talked for an hour. We moved from garden design to architecture to our favorite hidden spots in Boston to funny stories about our college days. He never once asked what my nonprofit paid. He never asked where I lived or what kind of car I drove. He just talked. He listened. He asked smart questions. He laughed at my jokes. I realized I had not had a conversation this normal, this real in years. With Marcus, every conversation had felt like a performance, a negotiation. With Jamal, it was just easy. He was not trying to impress me. He was not trying to size me up. He was just connecting. Finally, he looked at his watch and his eyes widened. Oh, wow. I have been here for almost 2 hours. I am so sorry, I have a meeting I am completely late for. Oh no, I am sorry, I said, gathering my things. I kept you. No, he said, standing up and scrambling for his napkin sketch. This was the best conversation I have had in a long time. Listen, I know I just ruined your notebook, but would you let me actually buy you that coffee again? Maybe this Friday. He looked hopeful and a little nervous, and for the first time since my grandfather died, I felt that simple, uncomplicated flutter of excitement. I would like that, I said, my voice steady. I would like that a lot. He beamed, gave me a small wave, and hurried out of the cafe. I sat there for a long time after he left, just looking at the empty chair. I picked up my ruined notebook, the coffee stains now dry, a permanent reminder of our meeting. I smiled. A real, genuine smile that reached my eyes. I was free. I was whole. And I was finally truly ready for a new beginning, one that I would build entirely on my own terms. The most powerful lesson from Imani's journey is that your self-worth should never be hidden or compromised for the sake of love. Imani sought genuine connection by pretending to be less than she was, only to attract a family defined by greed. Her grandfather's wise planning didn't just protect her money, it created a mirror that forced her betrayers to reveal their true nature. In the end, Imani's greatest inheritance wasn't the $50 million, but the realization that true strength comes from within and that you must build a life based on your own authentic value. If this story of justice and finding your own strength resonated with you, hit like and subscribe for more stories of overcoming betrayal.